Hello everybody, welcome back into some more Space Engineers. In this episode of my Beginner's Guide tutorial series, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set up a mining drill rig, as well as a ice mining drill rig, which are both the same, but there's a little bit different, there's a little difference in the blocks that are going to be needed for each of these builds. As you can see, I've already gone ahead and made a little bit of a starter platform. Now I actually do go a little bit more in depth in the actual survival aspect of the game. If you want to go ahead and check out my survival series, I'll link that in the description, and of course I'll put up a card right in the corner right now for you to for your viewing pleasure. So if you want some help with your learning to survive and beginning in Space Engineers, please do be sure to check that out, as that will give you a nice starting helping hand rather in your first couple of stages within Space Engineers. But enough babbling, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So let's say you have your base already set up, and now you are just landing on your planet and you just want to get your base set up. So how I like to start with this drilling rig is I like to start with a cargo container right like so, and then we need an assembler. So I will delete that and I will put an assembler in like suchly, and then I like to add a basic refinery, or a couple generally, just like that, so that we can quickly process the stone that is being produced here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a conveyor junction here so that I can go ahead and add my drilling rig. Now you will have to kind of piece together how big you want this to go, or how big you want this to be. First of all, I suggest doing one piston for your first little bit of drilling. It takes a little while to actually build up the components, especially going through this grass, because the grass doesn't give you very much stone. But anyways, if we take a quick look at the piston, put it up against, let's say, the refinery here, we'll see that it is 2 blocks tall, because this refinery is 2 blocks tall, as you can see. Anyways, let's go ahead and we're going to piece together the rest of the drilling rig here, and we're going to see that the advanced rotor that we're going to need is a 1 block block, and then the drill that we're going to obviously need to drill is 3 blocks. As you can see, it sticks 1 block above the refinery there. So all in all, we're going to need about 6 blocks clearance. So I want the drills to come to the bottom of this cargo container here, so we're going to want to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is where our piston will start. So we're going to want to go 1 block taller to come out with a curved conveyor piece, and then we're going to put our actual conveyor to be able to feed the base with the stone. Now I'm going to do 10 drills wide, 9, 10, boom, done. Now after your 10th block, you're going to want to go ahead and put another curved conveyor, and then you can start with your piston here like so. Now I suggest before you start doing anything is go into your pistons. I want you to go ahead and reset the maximum distance. Actually, leave it alone for now, sorry, my bad. But you do want to share inertia tensors. It doesn't matter that much for this specific situation with one piston, but once you start adding multiple pistons into your drilling rig, you're definitely going to want to have this share inertia tensor so your drill isn't wobbling all over the place. Now let's go ahead and slap on our advanced rotor. Make sure it's an advanced rotor because it has an actual cargo hatch. Let's take a quick look at a normal rotor. And as you can see, the head has no cargo hatch in it, so you will not be able to pass components, or in this case stone, through the rotor. So it's a very, very important thing to have, or to be using when you're creating a drilling rig. Now, like I said, I'm going 10, but I wouldn't suggest, if you're starting initially in survival, I'd suggest starting with 1, plunging that down, getting some components, build another, or build enough for a conveyor junction, like suchly. Right, so you'll plunge this down, and then you'll build your conveyor junction, and then you'll build your next drill on like that. It just saves on resources, because while you're starting up, resources are going to be fairly scarce, so you're going to want to keep doing this. Let's just go out like here. You're going to want to keep doing this technique quite a lot while you're starting out with the drilling. If you see on the right hand side, the UI for the drill, the components required is 300 steel plates, 5 computers, 5 motors, 12 large steel tubes, and 40 construction components, which is fairly expensive. If you look over in the conveyor junction, it is still quite expensive, with 20 interior plates, 30 construction components, 6 motors, and 12 small steel tubes. However, that is quite easy, or a lot less expensive than it is to build, 10 drills right off the bat. But seeming as we're in creative mode, and I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to build 10 drills just like so. And now that'll make us a very big hole and get us a lot of stone. So let's go ahead, and the next step will be to place a timer block. Now do keep in mind that if you have the progression tree, which is in your G menu, the progression tree does not allow you to build certain blocks until you've built something first. For example, you can't build interior turrets until you build a basic assembler. Same goes for, where's the landing gear? Same goes for, cockpits, stuff like that, guns, thrusters, all that stuff. You need to build a landing gear before you can actually build whatever it is you're trying to build. So if you can't build, let's say, a timer block, for example, because that I believe you need to build a light before you can build a timer block. So if you're finding difficulty building a block, just go into your progression tab here and search for the block that you're looking for and figure out what you need to build first. But anyways, with the timer block built and your drill rig ready to go, you're going to want to go ahead and, first of all, I'm going to hide these, I'm going to add these drills to a group. And now how I did that is I just clicked on one and then shift left clicked on the other drill. Now I'm going to add it to a group, and I'm going to call it drilling rig drills. Boom. And now you can hide that in terminal, and what that allows you to do is add a group at the top of your grid blocks hierarchy here, which will allow you to easily select what you're trying to do. Now me personally, I like to add the drilling tag to everything that is related to the drills here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to add a piston group as well for the drills, and I'm going to call it drilling rig. This will come into play once you start adding more pistons into this setup. Okay, now with everything, well, I cleaned up my hierarchy a bit there. You can do as you please, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this speed to 0.5. Now do keep in mind that the speed kind of does impact the performance, or not really the performance, but if you're going too fast, the drills will start banging against the walls of the stone hole that you're making. So you do want to keep an eye on it for a little bit just to make sure that it's not smashing into the walls. But anyways, let's go ahead and turn on our drills, and then we're going to go ahead and go down to the timer block. Oh my, that was good and loud. Now, as you can see in the timer block here, we have a delay in seconds, we have a delay and it starts in seconds. It goes all the way up to 1 hour, so you can get quite a long countdown for this. But what we're going to want to use this timer block for is actually telling the piston when to extend. So we're going to go into our pistons real quick here. We're going to drag down the maximum distance and then reverse the velocity so that it's a positive 0.5 meters per second. If it's not positive or the reverse function isn't working or something, go ahead and control left click on it and then just type in 0.5 and it'll set it to 0.5. Now with that set up, let's go back to our our timer block and get this delay feature set up. So let's go over to our advanced rotor and we set the velocity to 0.5 rotations per minute. So that means it's going to take 2 minutes to do one full rotation, right? Half a rotation a minute times 2 minutes. Anyways, so we'll go over into our delay and again control left click, and we're going to want 120 seconds is 2 minutes, but I like to put a 5-second buffer for something this low, just to give the drills enough time to, for example, if it is hitting the wall a little bit here and there, it gives it a little bit of extra time just to make that full rotation. Otherwise it can start screwing up your drill, wherein it'll start pushing it further into the ground without actually completing the rotation, which will eventually get the drill stuck and it'll just push it straight down. So you waste a whole bunch of time and get very, very little progress done. So 2.5 seconds delay, and then let's go into setup actions. Now you're going to want to look for your timer block. You're going to want to right click on that and click on start first off, so that when the cycle is complete and it pushes the pistons down, it immediately restarts the timer, so you don't have to tinker with everything and constantly have to come back in order to push the piston down every now and again. Now you're going to want to come over to your groups and you're going to want to grab your piston drills, right click on that, or your pistons for your drilling rig, and you're going to want to go ahead and right click on that and scroll down until you see increase maximum distance. Now what that does is if we go back into our control panel, we'll see that the maximum distance is currently 0, which is why I told you to set it to 0 a little while ago, because when we trigger the timer block here, and we go back to our pistons, we see that it has been extended to 0.5 meters. And it'll start, actually, as you can see, it's already started to kind of grind down the ground a bit here, but let's go ahead and trigger the timer once more to get that a little bit of an over-exaggerated effect. So once these drills get out of the way, we'll see that there's a very clear line right here. Now the thing that I like most about this drilling rig is that you can just let it go, completely forget about it, and if we come over here to our grid here, we'll see we're already full of stone. So this is why I suggest starting off with one drill at a time, because basic refineries are not that efficient. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a couple of extra refineries there, and just for simplicity, or just for to protect my OCD, I'm going to go ahead and put that block under there so it doesn't look ridiculous. But anyways, now we should be processing stone fairly quickly. Now a good thing to keep an eye on in your inventory is your drill screen, because you don't want your drills to become full. Once they become full, they will just destroy whatever rock that they mine. And that really sucks, because say this drill got full, but all the rest of the drills, for example, which is happening right now, all the rest of the drills are empty. This drill will not feed into the other drills. It will only feed into the cargo container. So every bit of stone that this drill collects will immediately be destroyed. Now do keep in mind that you will need batteries, as you can see I have batteries here, but you also need wind turbines to generate the power, and batteries to store it for certain demands. Like for example, when you start up your drilling rig, it does take a good bit of power once all the refineries start going, so you definitely do have to have enough power production to be able to support your mining operation. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look in the battery real quick, and we'll see that there's a couple of different statistics that you can track. First of all, and most important, is your current input. That'll tell you obviously how much power is being generated for the grid that you're working on, or the grid that you're looking at right now, like the battery for example. And the output is how much power is actually being used by your refineries, by recharging other things, by your drills. All that stuff requires power. Your lights, everything requires power pretty much, except for basically light armor blocks. And you're definitely going to want to keep your input fairly well above your output, and the battery is the best place to track this because it shows both. For example, if we go into a wind turbine, and we'll click this icon to show the hidden blocks, it only shows you the output. It doesn't actually show you, let's go back to battery, it doesn't actually show you the input, right? It technically only shows you the output of the actual wind turbine, or the input to the grid. But what you want to know is you want to know the output of the grid. So you want to be able to see, okay, I'm putting 665 kilowatts out and I'm generating, let's say, 12 or 1.2 megawatts, which would leave you with a very nice overflow of power creation or generation. So you don't really need to worry about your output. Anyways, enough babbling. Let's set a waypoint and go set up a hydrogen mining operation. Alright, now like I said in the beginning of the video, the hydrogen, or the ice mining hydrogen, whatever you want to call it, I mean, that's what hydrogen is used, or ice is used for, is hydrogen. But like I said in the beginning, it is exactly like the stone mining, except for a couple of different blocks will be used. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up my power grid here real quick. Alright, now do keep in mind that I'm in creative, as I said, so as you can see the current input is 0, and it was 0 on the base over there, and that's because in creative it basically ignores the power requirements for each block and it just gives it power. So when you're in survival, this will not be enough for the size of operation I am creating right now. This just simply won't be enough. If you have a couple of small reactors, that will more than likely be enough for what I'm about to build here. But 5 wind turbines will definitely not be enough. You're gonna need more. So anyways, like I said, the building of the hydrogen mine is quite similar to the stone, but instead of refineries and cargo containers, we're going to want to use hydrogen tanks. So I'm going to add, you're going to want to have a good bit of hydrogen tanks, because you will be creating a lot of hydrogen with this setup. So you're going to want to have, I don't know, I think, what is this, 8? I think 8 should be enough, but just because I'm in creative and I'm not too worried about resources, because I don't need to create any resources, I'm going to do 12. Now your next step would be to add a a processing station for the ice. So with ice you use O2H2 generators, which as you can see has a conveyor hatch on the bottom each side, and then if I flip it around you'll see that it has one on the top. So we can use these conveyor hatches to very easily add a bunch of production. Okay, come on now. There we go. So we just want to make sure that the at least one hydrogen generator is connected to the hydrogen tanks, and then what we can do is we can come up here. What I like to do is I like to add the a secondary row of hydrogen generators just up there, and then we can add the rest like so. Now if you're interested in how I'm doing these lines, be sure to check out my key bindings tutorial. I'll link that in the description, of course, and I'll put up a card for that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the top, and there we go. Now that is a lot of production capabilities, but again we're going to be using a lot of stone, so we kind of need to have that. Now the final piece to the puzzle is, let's go ahead and clear up some space, but we're going to build a couple of large cargo containers. Now again, you're going to want to make sure that your cargo hatches line up, otherwise how are these to get any hydrogen in them? But I just realized a flaw in my build here, so let's go ahead and search for conveyor junctions, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a bunch of conveyor junctions like so, so that all the generators are connected up to one another and they can all receive hydrogen, or ice, sorry. Now we can go ahead and add our cargo container, if it will snap. There we go. Now this is up to you. Do keep in mind, like I said, the ice will be generated very quickly and we'll be generating a lot of it, and it takes a good while for the ice to actually get processed. So I put 6 large cargo containers, which may look like a lot, but it really isn't when it comes to ice, because ice has a very high kind of volume, and it converts into very little hydrogen, so it's good to have a nice cargo storage like this. Now one other thing that you can do if you so desire, this is already filling up, but okay, well that's good. But another thing that you can do if you desire to, and I kind of suggest it because it's a very good alternative to wind power, is you can actually go ahead and search for a hydrogen engine. And again, you're going to need to search in the progression tree if you haven't unlocked this yet. But we see that there's a hydrogen engine, and what this allows you to do is obviously create power from hydrogen. So I'm going to go ahead and slap a couple of hydrogen engines on the back of the hydrogen tanks, so they are directly fed by the hydrogen tanks. Alright, and now you're going to want to go ahead and set up the actual drilling of your ice. Now keep in mind that you will have to use kind of the same tactic to figure out how deep you actually want to go with your drills. However, keep in mind that if we just turn off the jetpacks here, and we see I'm standing on stone right now at the bottom of the ice lake, and it's only 20 meters thick. So keep in mind that each piston extends to a maximum of 10 meters. So the max you can go down to actually collect ice, and I don't recommend trying to collect stone here because it's just going to clog up your system. And in fact, I would throw down a couple of basic refineries just in case, because you're bound to pick up a little bit of stone at the end of your drilling. And just to be safe, I'm going to add a couple of refineries there, just because I like to add a big grid of hydrogen farms. Like basically, you know, I'll start out with one 15 block wide drill, and then I'll go out 32, 35 something blocks over that way, and I'll put down another one. I'll do one here, and I basically make a grid of hydrogen drilling platforms. And then it all is fed back into these cargo containers, processed, and then I'll have my collection point. Let's say I'd probably have it over here because this is the emptiest spot. I'd have a connector here that I could hook up to it with a ship, collect all the hydrogen, and then bring it back to wherever I need to put it. So anyways, let's go ahead and we're going to start off with a conveyor junction so that it is easy to change or connect stuff up to, or whatever we're going to want to do in the future. And we're going to want to come up for we're going to want to account for 2 pistons. Again, I want the drill to come down at the top of this block here. So we're going to have 2 pistons, which is 4 blocks. We're going to need another advanced rotor, which is 1 block. And then we're going to need a drill, which is 3 blocks. So all in all, we're going to need 8 blocks in total. So let's go ahead and go up 8 blocks. Alright, and now, as I said earlier, I want to go out 15 blocks, but as you can see, I actually put conveyor junctions in the corners instead of corner conveyor tubes, like curved conveyor tubes like suchly. I use the conveyor junctions, that's a sorter. But I did that for future expansion reasons. For, like I was saying, if I want to set up a grid, I can simply just grab a couple of pipes off of here, and I can go out 35 blocks this way, or 32, whatever you work out your grid to be, and then I can set up my next drill right here with no issues, and I don't have to set up another processing platform. Now, the setup for the drilling rig is exactly the same as it is for stone. Just set up your pistons, make sure that your rotor is on the bottom of the pistons, and then you can set up your drills. So I made a bit of an error wherein I didn't account for these 2 blocks right here. So unfortunately I am 2 blocks high. So let's go ahead and quickly correct that by bringing the whole structure down 2 blocks. And now, as you can see, I did that on purpose in case you're wondering. This is why I recommend turning on your inertia tensors before you start building your drills. Because sure, you can build the wire frames and that puts very little weight onto the pistons, but it adds, once you actually build them up, that adds a lot of weight to the block. So now the pistons are, well, flopping around, and that's exactly what you do not want in a drilling rig. Okay, and now if we just take a quick peek at if we can actually get this at the right angle. If we watch the, actually it might be better if we do it on a drill here, but let's keep an eye on the drill as I put the inertia tensors on the piston. So here we go, ready? And that's what you don't want to have happen, because if you ended up building a little bit too close to this conveyor tube, it would easily smash right into that, and then you'd have your whole drill laying on the ground. So be sure to put your inertia tensors on before you actually start building. Anywho, let's go ahead and slap down our timer block. Anywhere should suffice. Let's put the control panel up top so I don't have to grind my booty off every time I want to go ahead and do something with the timer here. So as I said, I got everything tagged for drilling except for the advanced rotor. But the advanced rotor isn't exactly that important. Now let's set the velocity to 0.5 again. And you do not want to put inertia tensor on your rotor, because once the grid starts getting weight in it, that weight will be applied to that rotor as well, because the inertia tensor basically puts the amount of weight that is on the grid onto that specific block. For the pistons, it works really well because it stops them from wobbling all over the place, but for a drill, it's not very good in this situation. Anyways, enough babbling. Let's set up our timer block here the exact same way that we did with the stone mining. Now we can simply go ahead and turn the drills on, turn the timer block on, and I'm going to trigger it a couple times just to push it right. That might be a little too far. It's good actually, because now I can show you what I mean. So as the middle barely moves, which makes sense, it's in one fixed location, the actual outside of the drill has a radius of 15 blocks, which I believe is like 40 meters or something like that. So it's got a pretty big radius, so it moves a lot quicker than it does in the middle. And I can easily demonstrate this. If you look in the speed icon in the lower left corner, my little speedometer gauge there, it's flickering between 1.6 and 2.5, something like that. If we go all the way into the middle, we'll see I'm just like barely even hitting 1. I'm not hitting 1. I'm fluctuating between 0.15 and like 0.9 something. So it moves a lot faster on the outside, quite obviously. I mean, I don't think I need to explain that, but whatever. It gets more content in the video, right? Okay. And now we can see that the generators are all full of ice, and the cargo containers are now filling up with ice. Now this is where the production of your hydrogen actually comes in handy, because you definitely want to have a very big production. But yeah, as I was saying, ice fills up very quickly, and it takes a while for the hydrogen to actually be created. So it's a good idea to have a nice amount of storage. Now that we're back at the stone mining drill rig here, we can see that this drill at the very end of the chain is completely full, and now that's because it takes a long time for the cargo, or for the conveyors, to actually feed all the stone into this central location and suck it up into the rest of the base. There we go. Now we have a really big processing area. But let's go ahead and let this drill finish, and then I'm going to show you how to actually expand on this design without having to completely rebuild it. Alright, welcome back. As you can see, the piston has finished going around town. So let's go ahead and turn everything off. Wow, I added a lot of refineries, mate. Anyways, let's go back, and we're going to stop the timer block. We're going to lock the drilling rotor, and then we're going to also reverse the drilling pistons. Now what you're going to want to do is, I guess we could turn off these drills just to keep down on the sound, because my goodness, is that ever loud. Sorry if you could hear me adjusting my mic there, but it's a little weird. Anyways, so we're going to want to add 2 blocks like so, and then we're going to want to add a landing gear right on the bottom of those 2 blocks, just like suchle. And then we can go ahead and extend the piston once more, bring it all the way back down to the ground until this landing gear locks. Alright, and there we go. We have a connection on the landing gear. So now we can go into our control panel. Any control panel will do. Select your advanced rotor for the rotation, and we're going to want to go ahead and click detach. And now go ahead and reverse the pistons. Now that probably would have been something good to do before we detached it, because it does still have a little bit to go, and it can push right into the drilling rig, which may cause a little bit of problems, but nothing too serious. It just kind of jams the rotor into the now separate grid. But anyways, let's go ahead, delete that advanced rotor. We're going to add a second piston, and then we're going to go ahead and put the another rotor on the end of that. And now make sure to delete the advanced rotor part that is on the rotor that you just built. And then we're going to go ahead and come back into here. We're going to add this piston into the grid, or the group here, and we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and extend it by 1.5 meters, and then we're going to go 0.5, and that should bring it down just a little bit above it. So let's go ahead and this time we're only going to extend 1. We're going to extend it to 2 meters, which is a little bit too much. So let's bring it back to let's set the minimum distance to 1.8, and we're going to bring it into a negative, and that is pretty much perfect right there. You want a good bit of the actual rotor head shaft, I guess, to be sticking or exposed. And then all we have to do is come back in here, click on advanced rotor, and then we can click attach. Now sometimes this will jank your mining rig to the side and screw up all the pistons and stuff like that. Do not attempt to remove the landing gear when it's like that. Simply detach the rotor, bring it all the way back up so the rotor is not anywhere near the rotor head, and then you can just simply go ahead and push it back down a little bit. And if it was more than this, try and go a couple, 1 or 2 points of a meter further down, and then simply attach the rotor doing the same method. Now delete your landing gear, and then you can delete your blocks here. Now again, I forgot to add the share inertia tensors, so hopefully it doesn't cause too much of an issue. But anyways, let's go ahead and turn our drilling rig back on, but we're going to want to go ahead and reset the minimum distance to 0, reset the maximum distance to 0, set all drills to -0.5 by control left clicking on this velocity toggle, and make sure that you have your piston group selected, because this will affect all of the pistons that are in that group. For some reason this piston doesn't seem to be wanting to retract, but just go ahead and reverse that within that piston's control panel. Now we can go ahead and grab all of our pistons, make sure that maximum distance is in fact reset. And just because this was being funky, I'm going to check this one individually. Maximum distance and minimum distance are both reset. They're both at -0.5. So we can go ahead and reverse those, and let's just double check that it reversed these properly so that we're not having any issues of one piston extending and one not. And then we can unlock our advanced rotor. Oop. Okay, well I guess we can set that rotor to 0.5, let that start spinning around, and then we can start our timer block. Now this is the reason why I wanted you to have the piston group set up, is because we do not have to worry about adding the new piston into the timer block. It's already in that group and it's already going to increase the maximum distance. So we can just let that piston, or let that drilling rig keep on going. And as we can see here now, we have quite a lot of spare space. Now something really quickly that I suggest setting up for a drilling rig of this size is you're going to want to get a connector and a conveyor junction with the plus mark so that you have access to all of the conveyor blocks. Let's go ahead and we're going to add a straight block like that, and then we're going to add a conveyor sorter, and let's just slap a connector right there. Now with this conveyor sorter, you're going to want to go ahead and push whitelist, and then you're going to want to scroll down until you see gravel, which is right there. Then go ahead and hit drain all. Now what this allows you to do is force feed all the gravel into this connector, and then you can add the throw out. You can turn the throw out option on the connector, and I'm just going to rename this to ejector, just so I know that that's the ejector connector. Ejector connector sounds like I'm making like an action movie or something over here. But anyways, this will suck all this conveyor sorter will suck all the gravel out of every single block that can hold cargo on this grid, and it'll push it out because you don't really need gravel right now, and it is very easy to come by gravel. But anyways guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. I hope I was able to help you with setting up a drilling rig, and of course if I was able to, please be sure to give me a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers to be able to monetize my content, and I would greatly appreciate any support that you could give me. But also please be sure to check out my survival series, which I will either link at the start of the video with a card or right here. I can't remember if I asked you to watch that, but please do go ahead and watch that. I would love to connect with you guys in the comments as well, so be sure to leave one down below. Yeah, anyways guys, I hope I was able to help you. Be sure to check the description for all the links if you missed the cards in the video. And anyways guys, thank you again for watching. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, but until next time, ladies and gents, peace.